All right, today's video is on factoring trinomials. There's a bunch of examples of this. We're going to really focus on a couple today. The first one is if your a is 1. So your a is your coefficient of x squared, okay? So if your a is 1, then all you have to do is say what are your factors of negative 24 that add up to positive 5. So if I'm looking at my factors of negative 24, I'm just going to list them real quick. Okay, so because I know that my factor is negative, one of my factors is negative and the other is positive, okay? And that's why I have such a long list for the factors of negative 24. The ones that add up to a positive 5 would be negative 3 and a positive 8. That would give me my b term here, okay? And once we figure out that, all we have to now do is write both of our binomials, okay? We're going to use negative 3, and then we're going to use positive 8, okay? And that's it. That's factored if your a is 1. Okay, now this is what happens when we have an a that is not 1. Okay, my a is a 4. So what I have to do is a times c, which would be 36. And let me list all the factors of positive 36. Okay, so if I'm looking at the factors of positive 36, that means either both have to be positive or both have to be negative. All right, and again, that's why my list is so long. So now I just say, okay, which of them add up to negative 13? So that would be negative 4 and negative 9. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my negative 13 as my factors that I found, okay, as the negative 4x and the negative 9x. Okay, the reason is because if I have 4 terms now, I can do factoring by grouping. So I say, what is the GCF of the first 2 terms? What is the, let's use red here, what is the GCF of the second 2 terms? All right, when I factor out a 4x, I get x minus 1. And over here, I get a negative x plus 1. So if you notice, I have 2 different things in both parentheses. So what does that mean? That means that instead of a positive 9, I should have factored out a negative 9. If I do that, what I would be left with is a positive x, minus 1. All right, now both of my parentheses are the same, which means I found the correct GCF. So now that I've found the right GCF, all I have to do now is write the GCFs in one binomial, and then the x minus 1 in the other binomial, okay? And I have factored with the a times c method. Now, like we talked about in class, the a times c method will also work with the last example we did, where a was 1, okay? That will also work for any trinomial. So if you are stuck, you can always do the a times c method, and that will always work. All right, this method that I'm going to use on this is actually something we've already done. We just haven't really seen something where it's x to the 4th. But you're going to use the same principle of, okay, my a is 1. So what are my factors of c that add up to b? What are my factors of negative 3 that add up to positive 2? That would be positive 3 times negative 1. So if I rewrite my binomials with a positive 3 and a negative 1, okay, from over here, but it's not going to be x and x, okay? The reason is because if I multiply x and x, I would get x squared. But what do I want? I want an x to the 4th. So it's just going to be x squared and x squared. Again, the reason why I'm saying that is because x squared times x squared give me x to the fourth, okay? And that's what I have right here. So really the only difference or the only change is that if you're doing a quartic, right, something raised to the fourth power, it's basically the same as factoring a quadratic. You just have to remember that it's x squared. Oops, did I make a triangle? Okay, so that is how you would factor a quartic. All right, the last one for today. We're going to be trying to factor this, but I'm looking and saying to myself, okay, this is not the best because we have not seen something like this. So before I get going, all right, and you really should be doing this when you're factoring anything, but look for a GCF. Okay, and hopefully in the time it took me to write that, you notice that the GCF would be an x. So what it'd be left with is negative 15 plus 2x squared plus x to the fourth. Okay, now if there's 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, right, all separated by addition, what I could do is rearrange. Okay, and the reason why I'm rearranging is just that it looks more like something that we just did on the last slide. Okay. Again, you just want to make sure when you're rearranging, just be careful with your signs. So this negative 15 is, right, still negative 15. So now I still have to keep the GCF on the outside, but now I'm saying to myself, okay, my A is 1. So all I have to do is figure out what are my factors of C that add up to B. Okay, my factors of C, my factors of negative 15 that add up to my B term. Okay, so now I have a plus 5 and a negative 3. But again, just be careful because we have an x to the fourth, which means we have to have an x squared and x squared here. Okay, so again, my final answer is just x squared plus 5